Hello, lovely humans. I'm Heather. I am on a weight loss journey, and I have been using Zepbound to help me with that journey for the last about 11 months or so. And I wanted to share with you guys what my experience has been. But first, a disclaimer. While there is a doctor in front of my name, it is a doctor of physical therapy. I am not your medical doctor. So if you want to get on Zepbound, please talk to your medical professional before doing so. I am just a woman on the internet who is trying to lose weight and sharing everything I'm doing for it on the way. So ask your doctor, because I'm not yours. I also want to clarify that you absolutely do not have to be on Zepbound to lose weight. There's a million different ways to lose weight and to get healthy. Zepbound is just one of the tools that is out there that is an option you can use if it's a good fit for you. For me personally, I do have an entire video about why I decided to get on it, as well as with what exactly it is, how it works, and what the other medications are on the market that are available that are similar. So if you are very confused as to what any of this is, I'm going to make sure to link that video in the end credits so you can go back and get a little bit more information if you need it. But the nutshell version is the reason that I decided to get on Zepbound is while I was gradually getting healthier, I started having some pretty massive issues with my foot. I had plantar fasciitis and like the bone spur from hell that basically resulted in me having to have surgery. With me being about 250 pounds at the time of my surgery, I felt like it was really necessary for me to sort of speed up the weight loss process so that I didn't end up re-injuring my foot after surgery, as well as having less strain of all the extra pounds on that joint. Since, you walk on your feet every day. Also, in case you guys are a little bit confused as to what Zepbound is, maybe you have heard of Mounjaro. They are the same medication. The difference is that Zepbound is what is approved for weight loss. Mounjaro is generally used for people who have diabetes and some other complications. I think the idea is to have it licensed for a separate use so that the people who are trying to go on a weight loss journey are not accidentally taking medication availability away from people who need it for diabetes. Now at this point, I'm about 10, almost 11 months in on Zepbound. I am on the 7.5 milligram dosage. This is one that is prescribed by my doctor and I'm going through a pharmacy. I know that since I have started using all of these, there's a lot more smaller companies that do things like microdosing or trying to make it accessible in case you can't get it through your general insurance. I am not an expert on those. I would just encourage you guys, if you're kind of waffling back and forth with something that's not prescribed through your doctor and it's like a random website, check into how long that website has been available, look at your reviews, because not all of the sites out there are legitimate, and there are also a lot of influencers out there these days that are basically promoting Zepbound and getting a commission check if you go to get it. FYI, not sponsored by Zepbound. I have no affiliation with them.
Hey! Was that absolutely necessary?
Yes, it was, because I have to tell you all about today's sponsor.
I've been using Trainwell since last June, and it's been life-changing for me. Not only has it gotten me to exercise more than I ever have in my adult life, but because of it, I'm stronger than I've ever been. That's right, you may have to squint a little, but there are actually muscles there now. My personal trainer, Zach, has done an amazing job of tailoring the exercises to my needs, and I love that I have a chat option anytime I have questions or comments about my workout. One of the features that I really enjoy is that if you need a little bit of extra feedback with your form, you can also schedule a video chat with your trainer, and it is super helpful. I love that it's all done through my phone, so I don't have the hassle of trying to coordinate sessions with my crazy work schedule. Plus, the way the app is designed works really well with my ADHD brain. Not only can I see ahead of time what machines I'll be using and what exercises I'll be doing, but it also shows you what muscles the exercises are targeting, and it keeps me super motivated to keep showing up because I want to keep adding days to my workout streak. I have loved using Trainwell, and I genuinely believe that you guys will love it too. If you want to check it out for yourselves, you can absolutely do so with my link right here, which will actually give you 14 days for free with Trainwell, and I will of course have that link in the description box as well. Thanks again to Trainwell for helping me to get my best body ever and for sponsoring this video. Now, as for the 7.5 milligram dosage that I'm on, I started at, it was 2 or 2.5. I eventually upped it to 5 and then went to the 7.5. If I remember correctly, the last time I talked to my doctor, you can go much higher in dosage. I believe the 7.5 is where you really start to see more of the effects. But I followed the advice of one of my subscribers, and they had recommended basically waiting until the effects kind of plateau out before going up to the next dosage. And I'm going to say that I think that was some fantastic advice. So whoever you were that said that, thank you very much. It also helps because the whole point of this is not a magic shot that just lets the weight melt off.
This morning, I weighed 400 pounds.
The whole point is that you get some assistance, maybe with like the food noise, because that's something that Zepbound helps a lot with, but that you get some assistance with, say, the food noise or the cravings, or maybe a little bit of a stunted appetite while you are putting all of those healthy habits in place. If you just take the shot and you're like, okay, I don't have that much of an appetite, I'm just going to eat less, but I'll eat whatever I want, I'm not going to change the habits that I started with, it is going to bite you in the butt.
Oh, why do my actions have consequences?
Big time. Because the second you get off that shot, boom, the pounds are going to come back. So make sure that you are focusing on behavior change when you do it. Okay. Are you really? Apologies, my light got overheated and was like, girl, I'm done. So we're going to deal with this lighting for now. Where were we? Yes, dosage. So if you are taking the time to focus on the behavior change rather than immediately cranking up the dosage, it actually works a lot better, because I feel like when you first start a new dosage, the biggest effect is that your appetite is going to be smaller. And for me, I didn't really have a massive problem appetite-wise with overeating. It was more of what I was eating, because I am a sugar addict through and through, and I was basically living on everything pastry related. So for me, the effect that was more important was curbing the food noise as well as my cravings. As I've gone up in dosages, the main difference I have noticed is a lot more in the way of my appetite. And I feel like the effects of the food noise as well as the cravings has leveled out a little bit. I definitely have been able to get enough break from my own brain, so to speak, to where I feel like I can actually focus on what I want to have to eat and how I want to go about it, instead of just fixating on the next thing I could possibly shove in my mouth. So it is helping, but I think in terms of dosage, this might be person to person a little bit, but it depends on which effect you're going for. Now that I have the time to kind of think and process, because my brain isn't so cluttered with all these thoughts of junk food, I can actually take a second and be like, okay, I know how I'm going to frame my diet this week. And I've kind of figured out a game plan where I change things up bit by bit. I usually have some variety of a pre-packed salad, and I'll do some air fryer chicken on top. That way I get a little extra veggies and it's quicker. I also try to make sure I have at least one slow cooker recipe, because let's be honest, we don't all have a ton of time to be in the kitchen every week. And I've also really enjoyed getting to just explore new types of recipes. So all 40,000 of those things that I had saved on my Pinterest, I'm finally actually getting to taste test some of them. I'm getting to actually look into what brings me joy with it, instead of what's just like a compulsion or an obsession. I also have OCD and ADHD, so those make things a little bit harder, but I definitely feel like the shot is helping. It is not the end all be all. It's not going to cure my ADHD. It's not going to cure my OCD. If you are dealing with things on top of food addiction that make it a little bit harder to get your diet in check, you are absolutely still going to have to focus on behavior change and maybe working some therapy in, because yay therapy, it is absolutely fantastic for everybody. But I would highly recommend pairing seeing a therapist to work through your food issues with using this medication. We've been through the good effects, less appetite, less cravings, less food noise. That's the stuff that most people are fairly aware of at this point. But what about the bad effects?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
I know a lot of people, when they are in the earlier stages, have issues with gallbladder pain. I thankfully only had that happen once, and it was for the first week. But as for everything past that, in the later stages, I've noticed that things changed a little bit. While some people definitely get super nauseous on it, I actually have not had that be a very bad side effect. In the 10, 11 months I've been on it, I have only had to take nausea medication maybe 5 times. And I've only had one day where it was like crippling nausea, but the second I had the meds in there, I was good. I know a lot of people have also mentioned having some reactions for their skin to the shot. It is a little bit itchy sometimes. Make sure that if you are going to give yourself a shot, that you are taking a minute to kind of sterilize the area, use a little like alcohol on a cotton ball, give it a second to dry off, and then you can do your shot. For me, that helped a lot with the reactions because I was not doing that initially. And now the only time that I tend to have like a big old red itchy spot is if I am in a flare up of histamine issues that are completely unrelated to the shot. So for me personally, I would say not a big deal. As you go up in dosages, since it is more that is going in, I will say they get a little bit more painful, but even still, it's not bad at all. I think for the 7.5 milligrams, those I definitely feel. And there's some of them where it's like, ooh, that one kind of burned going in. I'm not sure how it gets once you get into the even higher dosages because I'm not on them yet. But I will say, if you are scared of needles, if you have the pen from the pharmacy where it's just a cap, you set it there and you click it and it injects, that is much easier than a lot of the smaller websites where they will actually have you dosing yourself with a needle in a syringe. If you get the ick from needles, try to go through your pharmacy if you can. As I've lost more weight, I noticed that it did fluctuate a little bit with how much hair loss I was getting. Anytime my portions were a lot smaller and I was losing weight faster, I definitely felt like I was losing some hair a little bit more than usual. That is a pretty normal side effect of weight loss. The faster you lose weight, basically, the more hair loss you're gonna have. If you need to supplement that with some biotin, you can, and I did that. I have a gummy multivitamin that actually has like 100% of your daily recommended portion of biotin, and I feel like for the most part that helped me a lot, especially when I realized, okay, there was a couple weeks there I think I was losing weight a little bit too fast. For me, my comfort zone is closer to the like half pound to a pound a week range because that allows me the time to gradually do the behavior changes that I need to make sure that this can be a long-term solution rather than a short-term fix. One of the big things that I have heard about Zepbound just in general is, oh my gosh, it's so expensive. And at first I was like, what are these people talking about? It's not that bad.
She must be living under a rock.
Because through my insurance, I have it covered, generally speaking, depending on the dosage, it's somewhere in between $25 and $35 a month. That's for 4 syringes, and you take one every single week. Now, unfortunately, American healthcare is a hot freaking mess. So what happened was, right around the 6-month mark, my insurance decided that even though I've been on it for 6 months, I now needed a prior authorization. They basically wanted a note from my doctor explaining like, well, this is why she should be on it so that they can approve it. Never mind the fact that a medical professional should actually be able to make that decision on their own, but don't get me started on healthcare in America. The problem was, with all of the stuff that the insurance sent to my doctor to fill out, they did not clarify something very important. And that is that your insurance is going to want to see that you have lost a certain amount of weight in that 6-month period. And if it does not show on the paperwork they sent, they're going to be like, oh, the meds aren't working. We're no longer approving it. Now, while I had seen my doctor in that 6 months, I had only done a video visit, so I did not have a new recorded weight on file. So the weight that they sent to the insurance company, it just kind of auto-faxed over whatever was on my file. And my insurance company wanted to see that I had lost 5% of my body weight in that 6-month period. I had lost way more than that, but it didn't get faxed over, so I had to do a full month of a runaround with my insurance company sending all of this stinking paperwork over where I was off of Zepbound for almost a full month. I think it was like 3.5 weeks before it got approved again.
Finally.
Now, if you are on Zepbound, you should know that this is not the kind of medication that you should ever go off of cold turkey. If you are trying to get off it, you are supposed to gradually reduce your dosage. Because if you just go off it cold turkey, your appetite is going to come back with a vengeance. And mine did. I was hangry for like a solid 2 weeks while waiting to deal with this. And then it slowly started normalizing a little bit. But I'll just say that be very, very aware if you go cold turkey, you're going to have some pretty hardcore willpower and be really proactive with how much protein you're eating, or you are going to be ready to strangle someone because you're so hungry all the time.
Food.
In that time period, because I didn't want to go cold turkey, I reached out to my pharmacy to ask, okay, well, my insurance is being stupid. How much is this medication without insurance? And then I got the shock of a lifetime because as it turns out, the internet was correct. It is horrifyingly expensive. They quoted me over $1,000 for a 1 month supply. If you do not have insurance to help you cover this, please do not waste $1,000 a month trying to get this medication.
It's just not worth it.
Just spend that money on a registered dietitian or some counseling so you can work through your food issues, because that's going to be 1,000 times more worth it. I know it can feel really frustrating if this is something you don't have regular access to and you're like, I just want to finally get this weight off. This is so infuriating. Like, I feel like I just can't do it without it. I promise you can. It definitely just takes time and figuring out essentially the secret to why you gained weight in the first place. Along the course of my entire experience with Zepbound, I finally got to the root of what all of my issues are with food. And I've kind of talked about it some in the other videos, but for me, it had a lot more to do with my OCD and my ADHD and figuring out how to manage all of my symptoms for that. And then the Zepbound has just been kind of an added bonus. But please don't beat yourself up if it is not something that is financially feasible to you. Lord willing, down the road, we'll get some more generic versions that are a lot more affordable. One other thing that I've started to hear from a lot of people is that once you get on Zepbound, you have to be on it for the rest of your life. And me personally, I kind of disagree with that. One, for the most part, your body's pretty smart. If you are on a dosage for a very, very long time, the same way you're going to plateau with those lower dosages, my personal belief is that eventually you would also hit a plateau on those higher dosages. I do think it's something that can probably help people for multiple years, but eventually if you hit that point where it doesn't feel like it's working as much, then you're going to have to be in this awful position where you're stuck and you're like, have I changed my habits in the last few years? Or was I just eating less and hoping for the best?
I hope it's not that one.
The number one most important thing with Zepbound, start with behavior change. Use all of its benefits, less food noise, less appetite, less cravings, to really focus on what you can do to actually change your lifestyle so that it is something that is sustainable in the long term, so that you don't need to be on this medication forever. Because every medication does have side effects. It is a drug. Even if those side effects are minor, a lot of these are still fairly new overall to the industry. So we don't necessarily have studies saying what happens 50 years from now on Zepbound. So personally, I don't want to be on it forever. Hey, get your nose out of that. Misty May. One moment, please. My cat is trying to eat my plants. Whatever I can do to keep her out of the plants. Now, I know I say don't just let it be a cheat code to everything. You've got to put in the effort. As you get further along in your Zepbound journey, the temptation is going to be pretty strong to just kind of stop putting in the effort on your diet and just eat a little bit less. Your body is going to start to tell you that it is not okay with this. One of the things I had to figure out while I was doing all of this Zepbound stuff is more about what were my new hunger cues, because I didn't naturally, with the Zepbound, get as hungry as I did before. But I started to realize that I would feel really, really completely wiped out, like I had no energy, and kind of like queasy but not nauseous, but not due to a side effect. It was due from me being like, oh shoot, did I skip lunch? Let me get my life together. For about a month in there, I was kind of just letting Zepbound do its thing, and I was not being proactive. And I started to realize just how crappy I was feeling, and it clicked, and I was like, oh, duh. I stopped making the effort. I got a little lazy with it. I got to get back on track. The same thing is going to happen if you are not paying attention to your diet, or if you stop making protein a priority. You are going to start to feel completely wiped out and not well. And one of the things you really should be aware of for Zepbound is that protein is so important. Because this is a weight loss drug, if you are losing weight, there is a pretty high risk that you're going to lose some muscle mass as Really? Can we do that later? There's a pretty high risk that you're going to lose some muscle mass instead of just fat. So you want to be proactive, not only with the protein in your diet, but with making sure that you're having enough exercise too, because you want to be building your muscles even while you are trying to lose weight. Once I kind of clued into the fact that I was being a little lazy with it and needed to get my diet together, it did slow down my weight loss, but I feel like I actually feel 1,000 times better than I did, because I'm slowly focusing more on what I'm putting in my body instead of just being like, don't bite me, rude, instead of just eating less. So if you are on Zepbound and you're not losing, 5 pounds a week, 4 pounds a week, whatever, don't beat yourself up. Just focus on your diet. I found that my overall diet is about 1,000 times better. I still do fight my sugar addiction, but I feel like my habits and things that I put in place to fight it have gotten so much better. And if you think about it in terms of how much weight you gained over the years, that probably was not from one bad habit alone, right? You had 50 small habits that worked together to gradually pack the pounds on. As you're on Zepbound longer and longer, you get more and more time to go through those habits one by one and tackle them and tweak them to where you can do something sustainable for a long-term healthy life. And I'm finding that for me, it also makes weight loss way less overwhelming if I'm just focusing on one habit at a time. I'm sorry, my equipment is going to be the death of me. Apparently now my camera is too hot, so we're switching to the phone. But basically, every time I would try to tweak those habits bit by bit, I felt like the scale of me feeling better, it would kind of just gradually sneak up more and more, and it made it so much more worth it. Because me, 10, 11 months in, feels about 1 billion times better than I did on the initial startup of this. And of course, part of that is because I have lost a lot of weight. When I started this last October, I think I was like 251 pounds. I wanted to make sure I could lose a little bit more on my own before starting Zepbound. I got down to 248. I started it, and now I am actually at 195 pounds, basically the 10, 11 months later, which is freaking huge. This is the smallest I've been in like 10 years. So woohoo, progress. I also got to learn more about myself as I went on this journey. The last time I had lost weight, I guess you could say my first go around while I was doing it on YouTube, I had got down to 212 pounds, and that was the weight limit that was stuck in my head because that was the point where I started to gain weight again. I never could get past the 212. The second I got to it this time on Zepbound, I feel like I kind of started panicking in my head and self-sabotaging because I was so scared that I was never going to get past it. And if you're sabotaging, you're definitely not going to get past it. So make sure you do the mental work for that. I also realized as I was shrinking that I've identified as a plus size woman my entire life. I don't know what it's going to be like to identify as, say, like a regular size person or even a thin person. And I kind of like freaked out and had a crisis. I was just like, who am I?
She's having an identity crisis.
So just be aware that as you're going on this journey, some stuff is going to come up, and that is why therapy is important. So again, do your therapy. Right around that time, my self-sabotage came in the form of like my nightly snack because I'm so sorry about the cattail. I love getting to take a bath at night. That's like my self-care, and I like having a little snacky in the tub when I'm doing that. And I got a slight obsession with fruit roll-ups, and then I realized, oh, you stop it? I'm so sorry. And then I ended up having like 5 fruit roll-ups a day and was like, I may be self-sabotaging. Let me get it together.
God, pull yourself together.
So I have stopped buying fruit roll-ups, and I'm still working on getting my nightly snack a little bit better, but there's been a drastic difference. Hopefully this video is not too long. I just really wanted to cover anything that I ran across while trying to lose weight on Zepbound. If you guys have any further questions, are you kidding me? She's like determined to lick her butt in front of this camera. If you guys have any questions about being on Zepbound that I didn't answer in this video, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. My personal experience, it has been 100% worth it, but I definitely am going to have to continue to make sure going forward that I don't let it just be a cheat code. It's just a tool, and I have to do the behavior change. Love you guys. Thank you so much for putting up with my technical difficulties today, and I will see you lovely, lovely humans in the next one. Bye-bye.